I started my personal finance or budgeting journey literally like 10 years ago. And if I were to start today, there are definitely things that I would do much differently. Let's talk about them. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing the things that I would do differently if I were starting a personal finance or budgeting or debt payoff journey today. The first thing that I would not do is stress about having an emergency fund before starting the process. Yes, I feel like that is important for a lot of people, but for some people, it just really isn't even worth the energy. I feel like some people already have an emergency fund. Some people earn enough money that they don't really need to be focusing on putting a lot of time and energy into starting an emergency fund. I know that that seems like a hot take, if you will, but it's just something that I wholeheartedly stand by. It will behoove some people in certain situations to focus on building that emergency fund. Like, I know people who have sold items and worked extra and just did a whole lot to get an emergency fund, whatever that would have looked like for them. But I just feel like it wasn't really that necessary for us, and my rationale is because the amount that we were earning then was a decent income. It's just that we were spending a lot very frivolously, like on eating out and all of that. So it wasn't that creating an emergency fund was difficult for us. And don't get me wrong, it's not that emergencies didn't arise. It's just that we were just able to cash flow those emergencies much like we are able to do now. Like, literally, there has not been a time where we have been really and truly backed into a corner because we didn't have X amount saved up to cover a cost. And that is because we pay cash along the way for everything. Tuition, home repairs, car repairs. We just pay cash for it. That means that maybe we were planning to save $2,000 in a month, but we're not able to save $2,000 anymore because maybe we have an expense that comes up that's $2,000. So I'm not saying don't have one. I'm just saying I wouldn't put a lot of time and energy into like trying to make sure that that took place before just diving in, because I feel like it was kind of a holdup along the way. Another thing that I would do differently, though I feel like I did do this a bit, is that I would really focus on my why for starting the financial journey. I used to preach about this all the time, if you will, and how I think that everybody needs to focus on that why. I just think that while I did do it, I would have started focusing on it a little bit earlier, which brings me to my next point. My next thing that I would have done differently is I wouldn't have waited to start until I felt like things were perfect, or until I felt like we had reached a certain income level, or whatever the case is, because I feel like had we started previously, which we wouldn't have individually, we would have started and could have started this journey, which we kind of dibbled and dabbled in, but we didn't really start it until we got married and combined our finances. But I just feel like instead of waiting for a perfect time or whatever, I would have just started much sooner. You know, I would have started I know some people say there's like running jokes about how people should have not been playing outside with their friends when they were 8, but should have been working so that they could save up to buy a house in this economy, like little jokes like that. But truly, I could have started this journey, especially when it comes to investing and all of that, much sooner. I didn't really learn about investing a whole lot until probably like 10 years ago, maybe even less time than that. But I always knew about paying off debt and all of that kind of stuff. So I definitely would have been paying off debt sooner and saving money sooner as well. I guess what I'm trying to say is I would have made more gains while single, instead of kind of like just doing whatever I wanted and just waiting to be married to start this process. Or even when we were dating, we dated for like 3-4 years. So yes, like I said, we dibbled and dabbled a good bit here and there, but we could have really, I am just speaking for myself, I could have really catapulted that whole financial freedom, financial journey had I started sooner. Another thing is I wouldn't try to be perfect. I feel like trying to perfectly stick to the budget and trying to perfectly do this and all that was a little bit stressful in the beginning. And of course, when you're starting something new and fresh, you want to succeed. But I just feel like I put a lot of stress into that that I could have foregone. Because the reality is, I'm not perfect in life in general. I'm not perfect at literally anything in any area of life. So to expect perfection out of myself or my husband and me when it comes to sticking to certain budgets and managing our money and all of that was unrealistic as well. Another thing that I would have done differently, which a lot of the things that I'm sharing, I eventually made my way to, but I would have kind of started right out the gate with them. Of course, you don't know what you don't know, but I'm just saying, like, these are things I would have done from day one instead of maybe having to learn them. And that is just focusing on the biggest spending categories. Like, as an example, I've always known our eating out budget can be out of hand. Still to this day, it's just our biggest struggle and our biggest barrier to success. And I feel like if I would have just focused on those categories where we spend a little bit more, the whole process would have gone so much smoother. I'm at a point now where I realize that there's not really much changing when it comes to our bills. Our bills are our bills. I cannot change the price of our mortgage unless we sell this house and move out. Our mortgage is just what our mortgage is. It's not determined by us. And a lot of our other bills, same thing. Our electricity bill. Yes, I could try budget billing, but it's not me controlling the amount that I'm spending on electricity. Georgia Power controls that. That's just me controlling the amount that I'm paying each month and trying to get a budgeted amount to pay each month or a consistent amount, but it's not really controlling anything. I can't control really the amount of water that we're using. You know, I can try to save here or there, turning off lights and stuff like that, but showers, cooking, all of that requires water. So a lot of the bills, I have come to learn that it just is what it is. I just have to live with it. But what I can control is what has come to be known as our shopping budget. This shopping budget includes everything that we might spend money on in a month that is not a bill. And even breaking it down a little bit further, some of the shopping is a little bit out of our control, like depending on what that shopping is and what it looks like. But some very much is within our control. A lot is, particularly like eating out. We focus very heavily on trying to control our eating out. That's a huge thing for us. Groceries, yeah, we try to shop smart and save money and look for deals and stuff, but I can't control the price of a gallon of milk or whatever. So I just have washed my hands with it. But basically what I'm trying to say is I've gotten to a place where I am controlling just a couple of the categories and the spending within those categories, and this makes way more sense. Another thing that I would do off the top, which I did do, but I would have done a better job at, and that is budgeting for fun money. I know back in the day, my husband and I would have a fun money budget that was pretty minuscule, and I feel like it kind of worked for us. I don't feel like it was, too catastrophic, but as time has gone on, I have learned that you can't really put a price on fun. Like, I live for fun and for play. That is what I do through and through. After I film this video, I'm going to play. Tomorrow, I'm playing with friends. I'm playing with myself today because I'm here alone. My husband's away, and tomorrow I'm hanging with friends and we're playing, and then the next day I'm going to a planner event with my planner friends and we're playing, and next week we're going on a summer vacation and we'll be playing there. So you can't really put a price on that. I know some people will beg to differ. Some people are introverts. Some people don't like spending money on play. But for me, in my household, we enjoy playing, and I would have budgeted a little bit more for fun money or felt less guilty if we went over the budget, because when we would go over the budget, I would feel pretty guilty, but I would have just allowed more freedom to play. Money's important, but the reality is that playing and hanging with family and friends is always going to be more important to me. I'm here for a good time, not a long time. Even if I put my best foot forward with saving as much money as I could, I'm still going to die at the same time. I don't know when my time will be, but it'll still be the same time. So I'd rather have lived a little bit more than to have been a hermit and hoarded money. Another thing that I would do differently is I would budget for irregular expenses. 100%. So a lot of people do this by way of sinking funds. And if you know, my history with sinking funds is not that great. I find trying to keep track of it and all that to be annoying, but you cannot put a price on having the money when you need it. Right now, we're having to get our shower repaired. Do I have a sinking fund with enough money in that? I don't even have a sinking fund for our house, first of all. Do I have enough money in that account? Would I have had enough money in that account had one existed? I mean, technically I have one, there's no money in it. So technically I have buckets for all the different categories. But is there enough money in there to cover the expense? The answer is no. So we're just gonna pay for it out of pocket. It's not that big of a deal, but I find that when there's a car repair or a home repair or anything like that, it really would behoove us to have been saving for it. We continue to not. Why? Because we just end up cash flowing it. Either way, I feel like the money is the money either way. Like however we divide up our money and our spending is how we choose to do it. But whether I had $1,500 saved or $3,000 saved or $5,000 saved, or whether I am just cash flowing it, it's still all coming from the same pot of money, I feel like. But you can't put a price on just having money stashed away for those irregular expenses, for sure, even though I continue to not do it. Another thing that I would do is I would choose a system that matches my personality, which I kind of did. So whenever I was starting budgeting, I knew that like paper, all of that was up my alley. So I was a paper budgeter. I've since transitioned fully to digital budgeting, but I would just choose a system that matches my personality. As an example, I'm really here to harp on one system that is highly encouraged by many, but does not match my personality at all, which is cash envelopes. So as a paper person, I always thought that, cash envelopes would be up my alley. They would be something I could get behind. I learned very quickly that they are not. I keep trying out cash budgeting because I do feel like there's a space for it and it could be helpful, but it's just annoying to me. Like passing back envelopes between my husband and me, like the grocery cash or envelope or gas or whatever. I don't know. All of it is annoying. Maybe if I were single, but yeah, as a married person, it's just super annoying unless one person's going to keep up with the cash envelopes, which is unrealistic for my family. All of that to say, cash envelopes may sound appealing to you or they may not. Using a digital app or an Excel spreadsheet or whatever may sound appealing to you, or it may not. It might look like it's working for other people and it might be, but just pick a system that works for your personality. Another thing that I would stop doing or do differently is comparing my budget, income, expenses, or whatever to other people. I am not a person who does this a whole lot, but sometimes I see people who are, let's say, making a lot of money and I'm just like, dang, imagine the life that I could live if I were earning that kind of money, or how much further I would be in my financial journey if I were earning that type of money, etc., etc. So I think that I definitely would work towards not having those thoughts as frequently. I don't think we can really get around having some thoughts, but I would work harder to just kind of block out everybody for whatever that might look like. Sometimes it means unfollowing people on social media or whatever, or working on yourself to rid yourself of jealous thoughts and feelings and whatever. So I think I would do a little bit more work in that area. Another thing that I would do differently, I kind of mentioned this already, is not be so hard on myself, because I feel like I would do that a lot. And again, a lot of times when you're seeing how other people are saving or investing, and maybe they have similar income, similar monthly bills and such as well, but they're just like, I can think of somebody literally right now who has a similar income and their bills are actually higher than ours because they live in a higher cost of living area, but they hardly leave the house or spend any money on fun or whatever. So they are able to save so much more or put so much more towards investing or whatever the case. I literally can think of someone like that in this very moment. And so that kind of comes back to the other point that I was trying to make, which is just, not comparing and not being so hard on myself, because I do have a budget that is in alignment with my goals, dreams, and aspirations, and it's been working out so far, but I would just be a little kinder to myself. Another thing that I would do is I would spend some time learning about emotional spending and even money triggers. I am currently a financial social worker. I have been for, I guess, about 6 years or so, and one huge element of financial social work is learning about the emotionality of money, or the emotions of money, if you will. And having taken that course, I feel like it really changed the way that I viewed money and how emotions can be tied to it and all of that, because I'm not the person who goes out shopping and I'm spending money because I'm happy or bored or sad. There's no real trigger per se, but there definitely are certain emotions that arise when the topic of money comes up for me, and the emotions can vary and they can look differently. And like, as an example, when we learned that we had to get our shower either repaired or replaced, that brought about anxiety, not because of the task at hand, but more so the uncertainty of how much this would cost, because I had no idea about what such a project would cost. And so of course I'm thinking the worst. And so anyway, lots of emotions coming up just about the anticipation of what such a project would cost. So I would take a deeper dive into the emotionality of money and what that means to me. Another thing that I would do differently is learn about my money story. Basically, what that means is what story I was told about money growing up, and just kind of how that translates to life today and how I view money. So similar to learning about the emotions of money, I would have taken a deep dive into learning about my money story and what that means. Another thing that I would have done differently, that I did a little bit of but still would have done differently, is including a buffer in every budget. Yes, I would include a buffer starting out, but it would be a small buffer, and I would just have included a larger buffer, 100%. And that buffer was supposed to exist as kind of like a spending category for if we couldn't rightfully place the expense in any of the other categories, or it was kind of like a catch-all for if we went over budget in a particular category. But I think I would have increased that buffer a little bit. That would have given me way more peace of mind. Another thing that I would have done is I would have checked in on my boundaries. So a huge part of financial social work, as an example, in the emotions of money and the emotionality of money, is boundaries and boundary setting. And I just feel that I hadn't always had the best boundaries. Like, I have great boundaries overall, but maybe not so great financial boundaries. Like, even today, if somebody asked me for money, I'd probably give it to them. So I think I would have done a little bit more work on what does setting financial boundaries look like for me, and how to do so in a healthy way, and all of that. Because again, one person asked me for some money. Oh, here's the thing. If I already have money loaned out, I'm not loaning anybody else money. That's crazy. So I do remember somebody asking me for a lot of money some years ago for rent or something, and I had already just loaned somebody else money, so I had enough sense not to say yes to that person. But outside of that, I don't think I've ever turned down loaning anybody money. If they're like a random person, then yes, obviously. But yeah, just doing a little bit more work around setting financial boundaries, 100%. And then lastly, I wouldn't have treated budgeting like a diet, although they are very similar. But as an example, when I gave up excess sugar, or sugar, like some days I don't consume sugar at all, which is way different from what used to be back in the day. It took me a long time to do that, like 30 years, but I knew that it would drastically change the trajectory of my life in a lot of different ways. And so instead of what I was doing previously, which was, trying to limit my sugar intake, though I still consumed it daily, trying to exercise and work out, and all of that stuff was important. Counting calories, all of that can be helpful and is important in a lot of ways. But just simply giving up sugar slash carbs. So I need to clarify, it's not just sugar, it's carbs as well. I try to cut carbs at every corner. So just doing that actually would sustain me in my health much longer and for much further than just trying to, you know, count calories as an example. It's all limiting, but I'm in a much better space now, having given up sugar and carbs and all that kind of stuff. So long story short, I feel like that's kind of how I treated budgeting when I first started. And I would have been trying to make some more long-term changes when it comes to spending. This is real work that you have to do. Like, let's be clear. This is real work. Trying to improve one's finances is not as simple as just creating a budget and then going on about your way. It's some real work that has to go into it for a lot of people. And so I just would have done, I guess, a little bit more work, not a little bit, a lot more work around trying to sustain healthy long-term changes when it comes to spending. Like, if you shop because you're sad and that's a trigger for you, being sad is a trigger for shopping. That's more of a prime example, I guess, of, you know, trying to work towards doing other things when you're sad and things that don't require you to spend money if you want to get a better handle on your finances. And so that's a more accurate depiction of what that might look like for people. But even still, while that wasn't the case for me, there still were things that I could have worked on to sustain long-term change. So those are all of the things that I would have done differently, or would do differently, or would do better if I were budgeting today, like right now in this very moment. Basically all the things that I've learned, I just shared with you, or a lot of the things that I've learned, because I could easily do a part 2 of this, or 3 or 4, I'm sure, because I've just learned so much. But that's all for now. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give this video a like, subscribe if you're new, and if you're liking what you're seeing, and I will catch you guys right back here in a few days in a brand new video. Bye guys.